Hey guys, it's Kim here with Fairily Fiber Fun. Thanks for joining me on another Tour de Fleece spin. Today I am spinning a beaded 2-ply yarn using Finn wool that I bought from a local Georgia farmer at the Fiber in the Valley Fiber Festival in Sawtee back in May. So the beads are kind of rainbow colored. They're very large. Much bigger than 6 millimeter. I would say they are around 10 millimeter beads if I were to guess. But you will see those here in a bit. I don't think I did not film any of the threading the beads onto the fiber because that part was done off camera. But this was supposed to be a live demo in the Wool and Fiber Arts community group on Facebook. And I wasn't able to get the whole process into a 1-hour demo. So I did film the majority of it outside of the demo so that you guys could all see it as well. So this is probably the easiest way to to spin a beaded yarn. But before I get into the full description and before I forget, I want to welcome you if you are new to my channel, and if you are a returning viewer, welcome back. If you haven't already, please do hit the subscribe button and don't forget to hit the notification bell so you don't miss new videos as they come out. And as always, please leave your comments, questions, and suggestions down in the comment section below. Okay, so we have what I'm doing now is I'm spinning. Let me back up. I divided the fiber not equally in half because I knew that the beaded single would take more fiber than the non-beaded single. So I divided it into unequal halves, and the smaller half is currently being spun as a plain single. The other half I divided into the number of tufts that I had of beads, and then I lost a bead, so I ended up with one tuft that didn't get a bead. And then I used a Diz threader to thread the beads onto the wool, and that worked really well, especially with how big the beads are. And they are glass beads. They're very pretty. They came with a bunch of knitting supplies I inherited from my aunt when she passed away. And they were, I think, the only beads in with the knitting needles. So, and they were the largest glass beads I've ever worked with. And the label on them is gone, so it's worn off, so I don't know the exact size. But anyway, I love these beads. I put them on the tufts in a random order, and then I spun them in a random order, so I wasn't paying any attention at all to what color of bead I was working with at any given time. Now, to spin these, I grab a tuft of wool and I hold the beaded end in my hand, and I start with the long woolly part first. And then when I get close to the bead, I'll fold a little bit of the fiber around the bead and then spin until I have just a tiny bit left so I can attach the next tuft to it. So this spreads out the beads at random distances because the tufts are random sizes. And sometimes as I'm spinning, I will push a bead up the fiber a bit, or try to, and sometimes as I'm drafting, the bead kind of moves down the fiber with me. So the beads do end up being completely random, but this method of spinning them into the single ensures that they're not going to go anywhere. So if you're worried about your beads sliding around after you've spun them into your wool, all you have to do is fold a tuft of wool around the bead, and as you are spinning it, that tuft of wool stays next to the bead and it locks it in place, so it's not going to go anywhere at all. And this works way better than putting your tuft of wool up against a single that you've already spun and kind of trying to spin it around, add it into your fiber supply, this is much more secure, it's much easier, and it does a far better job. So with some experimentation and some poorly made decisions that I have discovered during plying later that didn't work, this is the most secure way to spin with beads. Now, naturally, you can use thicker wool, and I will be experimenting in the near future with core spinning. I can't talk today. Core spinning the beaded wool without anchoring the beads at all, except it'll be sequins instead of beads because that's kind of the mood I'm in. So here you can see a close-up of exactly what I'm doing to anchor the bead in place. I've moved it up away from the bottom just so that I had a little extra floof at the end. There I've taken a little piece of wool from above the bead and folded it down below the bead. You just want to make sure that the little piece of wool you're folding around the bead does not come off from the rest of the wool. That happened a couple of times, and I think I had one bead that was not anchored, and I just had to make sure I anchored it when I was plying. So it's not the end of the world if it doesn't work as long as you're going to ply it later, but it is best if you do anchor your beads thoroughly. So that bead isn't going to go anywhere at all, and you almost can't see the wool on the outer edge of that bead. And then this is what it looks like on the bobbin, and aren't those beads adorable? So now we're on to the plying, and it seems to take forever to get to a bead because when spinning the single, you're spinning each tuft of wool and the bead is right there in your hand. But during the plying, it's not always that obvious, like you have more single between beads than you would think. And that's okay, I wanted them spread out, but I do make sure as I get to each bead that I am getting some good twist right at the top and bottom of the bead. That way it's not going to split really badly. And here I am showing you in slow motion what that looks like, so you can get a really good grasp of how I'm almost bubble plying around the bead with the other single just to make sure I get it completely securely attached where it's not going to go anywhere unless the bead itself breaks. And then of course I had to show off the plying bobbins, the Lazy Kate, because the Magic Craft Lazy Kate is amazing. So that's it. That's how you spin a beaded 2-ply yarn. You can put your beads as frequently, as close together or as far apart as you want. You can string them on thinner pieces of wool or thicker pieces, just draft it more. You can use bigger beads. You can use smaller beads, but I wouldn't recommend it because they are really hard to thread onto the wool, or rather to pull the wool through, while the larger beads with larger holes are much easier to contend with. So I hope you have enjoyed today's video. And again, if you have any questions, just reach out to me and I will answer them. And I hope you enjoy whatever it is you are doing, and I will see you in the next one. Bye, guys.